If Anakin Skywalker truly fulfilled the prophecy of the Chosen One as originally intended, the Star Wars saga would have taken a drastically different path. Here's an outline of how the story could unfold. Anakin stood before the Jedi Council, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders, but this time it was different. He was not a reckless knight seeking approval. He was a Jedi Master, entrusted with greater responsibility. His emotions, once a source of conflict, were now his strength. Qui-Gon Jinn had once told him that the Force was about balance, not blind obedience. Anakin had never forgotten those words. Through years of training, he had learned to control his emotions, rather than suppress them. Unlike the strict teachings of the Council, which demanded detachment, Anakin embraced the idea that love and passion could exist alongside duty. Obi-Wan Kenobi watched him closely, sensing the change. There was a calmness in Anakin now, a steady control that had once been missing. His impulsive nature had been tempered, not by fear of failure, but by an understanding of the Force itself. Yoda, too, observed in silence, recognizing that Anakin had reached a turning point. The Clone Wars had tested him in ways no Jedi had ever faced. He had witnessed destruction, betrayal, and loss, but instead of falling into darkness, he had found clarity. He understood now that the Force was not about rigid dogma, nor was it about raw power. It was about harmony. When Palpatine tried to manipulate him, Anakin saw through the lies. The Sith thrived on chaos, on imbalance, and on fear. But Anakin was no longer afraid. He did not need to suppress his love for Padmé, nor deny his attachment to those he cared about. Instead, he accepted them as part of who he was, drawing strength from them without letting them control him. As the Jedi Council debated the future, Anakin stood firm. The old ways had led them to war, to destruction, and to near extinction. If the Jedi were to survive, they needed to evolve. Mace Windu, once skeptical of Anakin's potential, now saw a leader standing before him. Obi-Wan, proud of his former apprentice, knew that Anakin had finally become the Jedi he was always meant to be. Yoda nodded slowly, acknowledging the shift. The Jedi Order would change, and Anakin Skywalker would be at the center of that change. Anakin Skywalker stood in Chancellor Palpatine's office, his mind racing. The Sith Lord had just revealed his true identity, his voice smooth and deceptive. "You want to save Padmé, don't you, Anakin? Only through me can you achieve the power to stop death." Anakin clenched his fists. He had been suspicious for some time, but hearing the truth confirmed his worst fears. Palpatine had been manipulating him from the beginning, planting doubts about the Jedi, feeding his anger, twisting his emotions. But Anakin was no longer the reckless knight he once was. He had been granted the rank of Jedi Master. The Council trusted him. Obi-Wan Kenobi, despite their differences, still believed in him. And Padmé, she loved him. Anakin took a deep breath, his connection to the Force guiding him. "I know what you are," he said, his voice steady. "You're the Sith Lord we've been searching for." Palpatine's expression shifted. His kind grandfatherly facade melted away, replaced by something cold and ancient. "And yet you stand here," Palpatine said, his tone dark. "You hesitate because you fear what the Jedi will do if they learn of your feelings. You know they don't trust you." Anakin felt the temptation slithering into his mind, but he pushed it away. The Jedi had their flaws, but they weren't the enemy. Palpatine was... Without another word, Anakin ignited his blue lightsaber. Palpatine let out a low sigh. "So be it." Lightning crackled in his fingertips, surging toward Anakin, but the Jedi Master was ready. He raised his saber, deflecting the deadly energy, advancing step by step. Palpatine's attacks intensified, but Anakin did not waver. He had seen too much, endured too much, to fall now. The office doors burst open. Mace Windu and 3 Jedi Masters stormed inside, sabers igniting in unison. Anakin did not look back. "I was right," he said. "Palpatine is the Sith Lord." Windu's gaze hardened. "Then he is too dangerous to be left alive." Palpatine roared in fury, unleashing his full power. But this time, Anakin stood against him, and he would not fall. Mace Windu stood firm, his purple lightsaber humming as he faced Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord's yellow eyes burned with fury as he unleashed a torrent of Force lightning. Windu gritted his teeth, deflecting the attack with his blade. The power of the dark side surged through the room, cracking the walls of the Chancellor's office. Anakin Skywalker stood at the entrance, watching the battle unfold. His heart pounded. Palpatine had been his mentor, his supposed guide to saving Padmé, but now Anakin saw the truth. Palpatine was the Sith Lord who had orchestrated everything. "Anakin," Palpatine hissed, his voice filled with desperation. "I am your only hope to save her." Windu pressed forward, his strength overpowering the Sith Lord's assault. The Jedi Master's blade inched closer. "You have lost, Sidious," Windu said. "The Jedi will restore peace." Palpatine let out a shriek, his face contorting in agony as the energy of his own lightning burned his skin. His body trembled, weakening under Windu's relentless assault. Anakin clenched his fists. He had a choice, one that would determine the fate of the galaxy. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, Anakin ignited his lightsaber. But instead of attacking Windu, he stepped forward and thrust his blade straight into Palpatine's chest. The Sith Lord gasped, his eyes wide in shock. His hands twitched, the last remnants of lightning crackling before fading into nothing. "You were destined for more," Palpatine rasped, his voice barely a whisper. Anakin pulled his blade free, and Palpatine collapsed to the floor. The Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious, Emperor-to-be, was no more. Windu exhaled, lowering his lightsaber. He turned to Anakin, his expression unreadable. "You made the right choice, Skywalker." Anakin looked down at his trembling hands. He had done it. He had ended the Sith's rule before it could begin. But deep inside, he wondered, had he truly saved Padmé? Would destiny still find a way to take her from him? Anakin Skywalker, now a Jedi Master, stood at the forefront of the Clone Wars, wielding his newfound authority with wisdom and strength. No longer just a warrior bound by the Council's decisions, he had the power to shape the war itself. His influence reached beyond the battlefield, challenging the very foundations of how the Republic waged its war against the Separatists. With his strategic mind and deep connection to the Force, Anakin saw the conflict from a different perspective. He understood that the war was not just about destroying droid armies, but about breaking the cycle of fear and manipulation. Instead of blindly following orders, he took control of the war effort, pushing for negotiations where others saw only battlefields. Obi-Wan Kenobi, still fighting by his side, noticed the change. His former Padawan was no longer reckless, no longer blinded by emotions. Anakin had grown into the leader Qui-Gon Jinn had once believed he could become. The Republic's forces, inspired by his leadership, began winning battles, not just with strength, but with strategy. The turning point came when Anakin, with the help of Padmé Amidala, arranged secret talks with key Separatist leaders. Instead of treating them as enemies to be crushed, he sought to understand their grievances. To his surprise, many of them did not wish to serve Count Dooku or Darth Sidious, but had been forced into war by corruption and fear. But Dooku would not let peace come so easily. Seeing his influence slipping away, the Sith Lord orchestrated a trap, luring Anakin and Obi-Wan to a final confrontation. However, Anakin, now more in tune with the Force than ever, saw through Dooku's deception. Instead of killing him in anger, he offered the Count a choice: surrender and reveal the Sith's true master, or perish in darkness. Dooku hesitated. For the first time, he saw something in Anakin that had been missing in Jedi before him: balance. Yet before he could decide, Darth Sidious struck from the shadows, attempting to destroy both his apprentice and his greatest threat. But Anakin was ready. With the combined strength of Obi-Wan and the Republic, Sidious was exposed and forced into a desperate retreat. The war did not end in fire, but in understanding. With Anakin leading the way, the Republic and the Separatists found a path forward, one that did not rely on endless bloodshed. Anakin stood beside Padmé as the sun rose over Coruscant, its golden light illuminating her face. There was no fear, no sorrow, only relief. Palpatine was gone, and Anakin had remained true to himself. He was a Jedi Master, not a Sith. The dark visions that once tormented him no longer held power. He had saved Padmé, and with her, the life growing inside her. Padmé reached for Anakin's hand, her fingers trembling. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us all." Anakin looked at her, his blue eyes filled with something she had not seen in a long time: peace. He gently placed a hand on her stomach, sensing the presence of their children. A boy and a girl. They would know a galaxy free from the shadow of the Sith. Months later, the cries of newborns echoed through their home. Luke and Leia were born into a world where their father was a hero, not a villain. Anakin held them in his arms, his heart swelling with a love more powerful than any he had ever known. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to bring balance to the Force. It was not just about defeating the Sith, it was about protecting those he loved. Obi-Wan watched his former apprentice with quiet admiration. "Fatherhood suits you, Anakin," he said. "Perhaps it was always meant to be." Anakin smiled, rocking Leia gently. "I used to think attachment was a weakness," he admitted. "But love is what gives me strength." Padmé stood beside them, exhausted but happy. "Then maybe the Jedi need to change," she said softly. And they did. Under Anakin's influence, the Jedi Order evolved. No longer were Jedi forbidden from love and attachment. Instead, they were taught to embrace their emotions, to find balance within themselves. A new era had begun. Luke and Leia grew up surrounded by love, trained as Jedi under the guidance of their father and Obi-Wan. The Skywalker family became a symbol of hope and unity. Anakin, once feared to be the Jedi's greatest threat, became their greatest protector. And this time, he never fell. Understood. Here's the expanded section with proper pacing, gaps, and formatting for your voice content. Yoda sat deep in thought within the Jedi Temple, his mind burdened by the shifting tides of the Force. For centuries, the Jedi had followed strict traditions, suppressing emotions, attachments, and personal connections. Yet now, after witnessing Anakin Skywalker's rise as a Jedi Master, Yoda sensed the need for change. The old ways had failed to foresee the Sith's return. They had blinded the Order to the darkness that grew within the Republic. Anakin stood before the Council, his presence strong, his connection to the Force undeniable. He had defied their expectations, proving that emotions, when properly understood, could strengthen a Jedi rather than weaken them. Obi-Wan Kenobi observed in silence, recognizing the truth in his former Padawan's words. The Jedi had been so focused on discipline that they had overlooked the true balance within the Force. Mace Windu, ever the traditionalist, remained skeptical. "Attachment leads to the dark side," he warned, his voice firm. "It clouds judgment, weakens resolve." Anakin met his gaze. "No, Master. Fear leads to the dark side. Fear of loss, fear of failure. But when we understand our emotions, we can control them. Suppressing them only creates more conflict within us." Yoda exhaled deeply, his wise eyes scanning the faces around him. The war had cost them many Jedi, and the Sith had thrived in the shadows. Perhaps Anakin was right. Perhaps the time had come for the Jedi to evolve. Adapt we must, Yoda finally spoke. Balance the Force seeks. Change, the Jedi must embrace. The room fell silent. The weight of Yoda's words lingered, reshaping the very foundation of the Order. Anakin proposed reforms. The Jedi would no longer forbid attachment, but instead teach how to navigate it. They would train their younglings not to fear emotions, but to understand them. Love and connection would no longer be seen as weaknesses, but as strengths that could guide them. For the first time in centuries, the Jedi Order began to transform. No longer shackled by outdated doctrines, they opened themselves to a deeper understanding of the Force. The future of the Jedi would not be determined by fear. It would be guided by wisdom, balance, and the willingness to grow. Years had passed since the fall of Emperor Palpatine. The Republic, under the guidance of Jedi Master Anakin Skywalker, had entered an era of peace and prosperity. The Jedi Order had evolved, no longer bound by outdated restrictions. Love, attachment, and emotional understanding were no longer seen as weaknesses, but as strengths. Anakin, alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, had reformed the Jedi Council, ensuring balance in the Force. But darkness was never truly gone. In the far reaches of the unknown regions, whispers of a rising power spread through the galaxy. Reports of disappearing colonies, stolen artifacts, and massacred Force-sensitive beings reached the Jedi Temple. At first, the Council believed these were remnants of the old Sith, scattered and desperate. But as the attacks became more coordinated, it became clear this was something new. Anakin, sensing a disturbance in the Force, meditated deeply. The visions that came to him were unsettling. Shadows moving in the dark, masked figures wielding red blades, and a sinister presence unlike any he had ever encountered. He gathered the council. "This is no ordinary threat," Anakin stated, his voice firm. "The Sith were never truly extinct. They have merely been waiting, rebuilding." Obi-Wan Kenobi nodded. "If they have remained hidden for this long, then they have learned from Palpatine's mistakes. They will not reveal themselves until they are ready to strike." Master Yoda, now aged but still wise, tapped his staff against the floor. "Investigate we must, but careful we must be. Overconfidence led to our downfall before." Anakin agreed. He selected a team. Ahsoka Tano, his former apprentice, now a Jedi Master. Luke Skywalker, his son, strong in the Force. And Leia Organa, a leader and warrior in her own right. Their mission was clear. Uncover the truth behind this new Sith Order before it was too late. As their ship left Coruscant, a pair of red eyes watched from the shadows of an unknown world. The time has come. The Sith had returned. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker stood side by side in the Jedi Council chambers, their bond stronger than ever. The weight of responsibility was heavier now that Anakin had been granted the title of Jedi Master, but he was not alone. Obi-Wan remained his closest ally, his brother in all but blood. The tension that once existed between them had faded, replaced by mutual respect and understanding. The Clone Wars had tested their loyalty, but instead of breaking them apart, it had forged an unshakable connection. Anakin no longer felt the frustration of being held back. The Council recognized his strength and wisdom, allowing him to fully embrace his role as both a warrior and a leader. Obi-Wan, relieved to see his former apprentice thriving, stood by him not as a teacher but as an equal. When whispers of treachery within the Senate reached their ears, Obi-Wan and Anakin acted together. Palpatine's influence had spread far, but this time, Anakin did not let doubt cloud his judgment. The Sith Lord's manipulations failed to take root in his mind, for Obi-Wan's guidance kept him grounded. They confronted Palpatine together, blades igniting in unison. The Sith Lord's power was overwhelming, but neither Jedi wavered. Obi-Wan deflected a barrage of crimson lightning, his strength bolstered by the knowledge that Anakin fought beside him. The Chosen One struck with precision, his every move guided by the Force, pushing Palpatine back. The battle raged through the Senate chamber, the clash of sabers echoing through the halls. Palpatine's rage boiled over as he tried to divide them, to plant seeds of doubt in Anakin's mind. But Anakin did not falter. His trust in Obi-Wan was absolute. The final blow came when Anakin, seizing an opening, drove his saber through the Sith Lord's heart. With Palpatine's fall, the darkness that threatened the galaxy began to wane. The war ended not with betrayal, but with unity. The Jedi Order remained intact, reforged under a new vision, one where loyalty and brotherhood prevailed. Obi-Wan placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, a proud smile crossing his face. "You have done what many thought impossible, my friend." Anakin met his gaze and nodded. "We did it together." Anakin Skywalker stood on the balcony of the Jedi Temple, gazing over the cityscape of Coruscant. The war was over. The Republic, once on the brink of destruction, now stood stronger than ever. The Jedi Order had survived, but more importantly, it had evolved. No longer bound by outdated restrictions, the Jedi had become what they were always meant to be, guardians of peace, not warriors of war. Anakin had helped reshape the Council, ensuring that wisdom and compassion guided their decisions rather than rigid adherence to old traditions. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and even Mace Windu had agreed that change was necessary. Attachments were no longer forbidden, but rather understood. Love was not a weakness, it was a source of strength. Anakin himself was proof of that. Padmé Amidala stood by his side, her presence a reminder of what he had fought for. Their love had endured, no longer hidden in the shadows. The Jedi no longer saw emotions as a path to darkness, but as a natural part of life. Luke and Leia, their children, would grow up in a galaxy free from tyranny, learning both the ways of the Jedi and the responsibilities of leadership.
The Senate, once corrupted by Sith influence, was now led by true representatives of the people. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma worked tirelessly to ensure democracy flourished. Without the Empire, systems that had once been divided now found unity. Former separatist worlds rejoined the Republic, knowing that peace was not just a distant dream, but a reality within reach. Across the galaxy, Jedi traveled as diplomats and peacekeepers, resolving conflicts before they turned into wars. The clone troopers, no longer bound by orders of war, found new purpose in protecting the Republic alongside the Jedi. The horrors of Order 66 never came to pass, and the temple remained a beacon of hope. Yoda, though older, had never looked more at peace. He had seen the dark times approaching, but now witnessed a future brighter than he had imagined. The Force itself felt balanced, no longer tilting between extremes. Anakin had fulfilled his destiny not as a Sith, but as the Chosen One who brought true peace to the galaxy. Years had passed since Anakin Skywalker fulfilled the prophecy as the true Chosen One. The galaxy knew peace, order, and balance unlike ever before. The Sith were gone, the Republic stood united, the Jedi Order had evolved. But in the far reaches of the Outer Rim, in the forgotten corners of space, something ancient stirred. Anakin stood atop the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, watching the stars in silent thought. Luke Skywalker, now a strong Jedi Knight, approached his father. "There's a tremor in the Force," Luke said, his voice steady but uneasy. Anakin nodded slowly. "I feel it too, something dark, something old." Leia Organa, trained in the ways of the Jedi by her mother Padmé and Master Ahsoka, joined them. "It's growing. Every night it gets louder in my dreams." The council had changed over the years. Masters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka Tano, and Even former Mandalorian warriors now guided the Order. Anakin summoned them all. We must prepare. The dark side isn't finished. It's returning in another form. From the shadows emerged whispers of a new Sith order, one hidden for centuries, led by a figure who called himself Darth Malvic. He was not like the Sith of the past. He was a relic from the unknown regions, feeding off ancient Force magic. Anakin led a mission to uncover this threat. He, along with Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia, traveled to the forgotten world of Morakar, a place lost to Republic maps. There, they encountered temples built long before the Jedi or Sith existed. Darth Malvac waited within, his power fueled by hatred stored over thousands of years. "You are not the chosen one," Malvac hissed. "You are only a spark. I am the flame." Anakin stepped forward, calm and powerful. "I brought balance once, and I will again." The battle that followed shook the very fabric of the Force. Luke and Leia fought side by side, their connection unbreakable. Obi-Wan dueled Malvac's assassins with grace and wisdom. But in the heart of the storm, it was Anakin who faced Malvac. The two titans clashed, light against ancient darkness. With the final surge of will, Anakin unleashed the purest light the Force had ever seen. And in that moment, the galaxy saw the truth. Anakin Skywalker was, and always would be, the chosen one.